He said he had a drug addiction, and then he admitted he had been stealing money.
What was the phrase he used?
I mean, I have to cuss to say it. He said...
Go ahead and say it.
He said, I you up.
At its core, who did you consider was your lawyer for your mom's case?
Alex?
Did he, though, ever pay you 1 cent?
No.
He was going to have to pay $10 million out of his pocket.
Did the defense have any response to you eventually?
That he could cobble together $1 million. Hey, Bo, what's this I've been hearing about what you've been saying? I thought we were friends.
Now, we've heard multiple witnesses breaking down all of Alex Murdaugh's alleged financial crimes. Prosecutors claim that was the motive for the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. Well, here's a refresher on the defendant's alleged financial crimes as prosecutors continue to collect his monetary misconduct to motive behind the murders for Maggie and Paul.
He admitted and said that he knew he was going to get caught at some point in time.
Former colleagues and friends of once prominent attorney Alex Murdaugh have taken the stand to peel back the veil of the attorney's lavish lifestyle supplied by the finances allegedly stolen from clients.
I think Alex was successful more not from his work ethic, but from his ability to establish relationships and to manipulate people into settlements and clients into liking him. So he did it through the art of basically.
The financial house of cards Murdaugh spent a decade building was beginning to collapse, allegedly stealing an estimated $5 million from his former law firm.
November, December of late 20, that's when he started making some disbursements that he was stealing from that started getting sloppy.
The former attorney is also accused of stealing a $3.4 million insurance payout meant for the family of his deceased housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield. After her family sued him, Murdaugh admitted responsibility.
Did he say anything about how much money you may receive?
The goal was to get me and my brother Brian at least $100,000 apiece.
It's unknown where the millions funneled to Alex Murdaugh went. According to the testimony of Palmetto State Bank CEO Jan Malinowski, Murdaugh owed $4.2 million. But according to friends and family, it didn't stop his spending.
The original price was $9,188 for the two firearms that Buster and Paul got for Christmas in 2016, correct?
Yes, sir.
Murdaugh invested in property during the recession of 2008, creating a strain on his finances. In 2021, Murdaugh took out a $91,368 loan for Maggie's Mercedes SUVs and spent over $10,000 on 300 caliber blackout rifles. Their low country estate, over 1,700 acres, was lavished with housekeepers, vehicles, and animals, including their Labradors, Bubba, Bourbon, and Grady. The Murdaugh home was a place for friends and family to gather, but after a 2018 boating incident involving Paul, Murdaugh's financial debt came to light.
You could tell that the boat crash was weighing heavy on him, and it was consuming his life almost.
He was going to have to pay $10 million out of his pocket.
And did the defense have any response to you eventually?
That he could cobble together $1 million. But
Did they have any other response?
He was broke.
His best friend, Chris Wilson, testified he saw no red flags indicating any kind of money issues the Murdaughs may have.
That he was, one of the biggest dogs in that firm, one of the biggest producers they had. Seemed to own a lot of things, do a lot of things, spend money. Didn't ever seem to have problems.
The prosecution said in opening statements, Murdaugh burned through his cash like crazy and was out of options, leading him to kill Maggie and Paul to distract from the alleged financial crimes he was facing. But will the financial motive be enough to convince a jury of 12 beyond a reasonable doubt and find Murdaugh guilty of murdering his family?
She felt that Alex was not being truthful to her with regard to what exactly was going on with that lawsuit. She said, he doesn't tell me everything.
All right, Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez, trial attorney, is still with me. And Gabriel, that's the question. You heard it there at the end of that package by our own Julia Janae was, is it enough to convince this jury that he would kill his wife and son based on this financial motive? And it was clear. The pressures were there, right? Folks were starting to discover what he was doing. His friends, his family, everybody was coming after him. And it was clear that I think the lifestyle he had become used to was pretty much going to be a thing of the past, especially after that boat accident and that civil suit. So there is that. But again, how does that connect the dot to the type of murder we saw here of his wife and son?
I just don't see it. I mean, if anything, you can argue that that would bring more attention to him. You know, if he was to kill his wife and son to divert attention from the financial crimes he was dealing with, it seems to me like that would cause more attention to look at you, you know, as a murder suspect. I mean, it just doesn't seem like that's a strong enough motive to kill your wife and kids. Okay, you know, it's something that you may have to do time for. You're going to lose your law license, but you know, why is that? How's your wife and kids to blame for that? What is the motive to kill your wife and kids just to divert attention from your own mishandling and misappropriation of client money at this firm? I just don't think that's a strong motive for you to kill your own biological son and wife. And I think you know, I think there's gotta be more. I don't like the motive here. I think that wasn't a good reason to divert attention from your financial misconduct. And I think it, you know, if anything, like I said,
Gabriel,
it could cause worse. It could be worse for you.
Especially when you consider the fact that there was no life insurance on either one of them. That's the part that got me. They brought that out, the defense brought that out on a cross-examination, that there was no life insurance. So there was no financial gain to be had there. And again, when you look at the brutality of the murders, you know, there was a little bit of testimony from a guy who worked on the property, actually worked at the kennels, saying that when one of the dogs needed to be put down, Alec couldn't even shoot the dog. He had to give it to him to shoot the dog. And yet, when it comes to shooting his wife and son, he shoots them in the most brutal manner that can be imagined. Yeah. Again, it's just, in my gut, I feel like he had something to do with it. But to pull the trigger, that's where I'm having a struggle. And if you believe that, can you still return a verdict of guilty?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the whole thing with, you know, there's some people, Michael, that like their animals more than they like their own family members. So
this is true.
There's that to say too. You know, that might not work for a savior, but yeah, I just think they're a little weak on motive here. And I think the other thing is, if it wasn't, maybe if the DA if the defense needs to show, if it wasn't, you know, Alex Murdaugh who killed his wife and son, they need to point the finger at someone, and that's kind of hurting the defense too. They need to really solidify it was this whoever, maybe there was a drug debt owed, or there was some other person out there they need to point the finger on. The jury wants to blame someone for this, and the defense has got to point blame at someone else. So if they can really have a solid person to blame for these murders, then they might have a shot at this. So that's what I think.
A lot of people thought Curtis Eddie Smith might be that guy, but apparently they investigated him and he's got a solid alibi. So they can't go there, that's for sure. All right, Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, there's much more ahead coming up in our next hour. We're going to head back live to Colleton County Courthouse for a debrief on today's biggest in-court moments. Then we're going to break down the day's best evidence the prosecution presented to the jury. And today it came all down to that crime scene evidence. And what does that crime scene tell us about the killings of Maggie and Paul? Our experts are going to walk us through what the state's expert witness testified to today on the stand. All that and more coming up next right here on your front row seat to justice.